you on your journey. Where are you going? Where are you heading? It's pretty confusing these days. Our world is really changing. There's so much turmoil and so much anger and fear that is being put into the minds and the hearts of people by government, by institutions, by by the powers that want to control the people. But I think there's one thing that they have forgotten. We do have much more power. We have the power that comes from inside of us, that we are born to be our own being. We have our soul and our breath. We have our mind, and that we can take charge of that. And many, many, many more people are just starting to do that, to raise their consciousness and understand that, wait a minute, I can make a difference in the world. I can make a difference to me, to the rest of the world. And when I make a difference to me, then everything changes. So these programs, as I've been asked to I've been asked to start them again. Several years ago, back in 2005, for 2 years, I produced my own show on the East Coast, and it was called "Have You Ever Wondered? ... Stepping Beyond Status Quo." And I started it in Charlottesville, Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson and the University of Virginia, which he started. Ironically, because of some misinformation that has been taught to every school child in this country about his birthday. The information that you've been taught is incorrect. It's a mistruth. And so, because that was the home of education, and it came to me in his home, it's like, well, have you ever wondered if everything you've been told is true? Well, that is not. And then, as from there, it started to grow. And what I would do is I would read the paper, listen to conversations, listen to what was going on in the world, and if something didn't quite make sense, or it was a contradiction to universal law, or what we know as universal laws, then I would bring it up. I would just give, okay, this is what they're saying, and this is a perspective. You make your determination about what is real for you, because I don't have all the answers. Oh, I have some of them. I have my answers. I have them from my experiences, through my journeys, and you have yours. But there are universal truths that are always in place. But it's how we use them and when we use them that we find it is truth for us in our journey. For instance, let's take an example. Abundance. Abundance. We can have an abundance of a lot of different things. We can have an abundance of negative, and we can have abundance of positive. But obviously, what the abundance we're looking for, in most cases, is an abundance of prosperity and of all those good things, even though we do need to have some of the not so good things to see actually how far we've come in our world. But abundance, from the government's perspective, all right, let's talk about from the government's perspective, so you get an idea of where I'm coming from here. Often, and I do have to say, when I started my show, George Bush was in office, and so he always gave me such great material. Let's say, I would often, you would read on the front page that that the president is requesting from Congress to have, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars more to fund the war, which is still continuing, unfortunately, just to the disgrace of this country and everywhere else. That's another matter. Anyway, he would ask for this huge amounts of money, saying that the money was needed to fund and supply the troops and to supply all of the companies, with the things that were needed to make a peaceful transition or a peaceful outcome to this war, which obviously still is not happening. So there was this request and saying, we have the funds, so you've got to provide them. Yet I would flip through the paper, either the Washington Post or the New York Times, and then maybe on page 3 or 4 in a small little corner is another little section about how the president is having to request from Congress a cut in federal funds to agencies such as Medicare, Medicaid, social services, education, all of these, the basic things that most people expect and require. But with this, there isn't enough in the kitty. Well, I look at those two things and I bring them together and I say, wait a second, these two things don't compute. Where on this hand, he's saying that there is plenty for his vision to fund the wall. Yet on this hand, there is not enough, because the vision is perhaps to keep the people impoverished, to keep the people in fear of the lack, to have them more reliant on the government rather than being able to be self-reliant on themselves in certain circumstances that the people get into. So we look at these two things, and as the universal laws, these things don't compute. It's the vision that is different. It is the vision that gives us the abundance and gives us the prosperity and gives us the ability to provide or not to provide for ourselves and for everyone else. And of course, nature is the greatest teacher of all of this. When we look through the seasons and we go from the bareness of winter and to the abundance of summer, through with the fall or the autumn and the spring being the conduits of the message of the movement of letting go and the movement of rebirth.